Okay, welcome everyone to an Elevate Lane County Working Wednesday. My name is Lizzie Gray and I'm a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. And this is the second webinar in a series of about 8 that we'll be hosting this fall. Each Wednesday, we will take a deep dive into 1 or 2 professional skills listed in the New World of Work's top 10 professional skills. These are skills that are recognized by industry, K-12 education, and post-secondary education as the most important skills we need to develop in order to be career ready. Today, we'll be exploring the professional skill of having a solution mindset. Joining us in that deep dive, we have invited 2 professionals from different industries to join us. Thank you both for being here today. Would you like to introduce yourselves and tell everybody what you do?
Sure, I'll go first. My name is Mari Strand Carey, and I am a senior research associate at the University of Oregon. And I do education research. So I do a lot of work in preschool through grade 12 settings, mostly with elementary schools. And I have a special emphasis on educational technology. And then I've been doing some work with Connected Lane County around computer science.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. My name is Bev Smith, and I am currently the Executive Director of Emerald Kids Sports, which is a 501c3 nonprofit located in Eugene, Oregon. It is a nonprofit that develops and delivers team sport opportunities for youth, kindergarten through 8th grade, and we also do some high school programs as well. The organization has been in the community for almost 66 years, so really feel privileged and honored to be able to work with such a long-standing nonprofit. And obviously, a nonprofit really works because the community supports it, and we've had amazing community support in all aspects of industry sectors, in particular our volunteer coaches who help us each and every year give kids a chance to play, have fun, and develop not just their sport athletic skills, but as well as just becoming hopefully better citizens through that process. And we have currently just moved into a new building, so we're learning all kinds of things and are learning about solutions that we have to come up with very quickly in order to certainly serve our community in these really challenging COVID times.
Great, thank you, Bev and Mari. Bev, I'm not gonna lie, I still get just a little bit starstruck when I see you. I don't know if everybody on the call knows, but Bev Smith was the coach for the U of O girls basketball team for a very long time. So I grew up thinking you were a celebrity.
Well, thank you. And I'm still only 39, so wasn't that long ago, right?
It's true, it's true.
Yeah.
So actually, everyone, John Stapleton just joined us. He is our 3rd panelist. John, thank you so much for being here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm John Stapleton. I'm one of the partners here at Pivot Architecture. I'll make this quick. Pivot Architecture is a design and interiors firm. So we design spaces people live in. Our particular company's been around about 60 years, and we do mostly sort of larger public sector work and commercial work. So for example, the MX, I don't know if you're familiar with the MX line. So all those stations, that's Pivot. So that's the sort of work we do. We're really values-driven, community-connected. Engagement with community is really important to us. So we tend to work in that sphere where we can do, like we do low-income housing, public sector work, mass transit, those sorts of things that we feel contribute to the greater good is our sort of values-driven proposition. Nuts and bolts, we serve our clients' needs. They vary widely. We could talk a little bit more about that when it comes, and that ties into what we're going to talk about later with solutions mindset. There's no rail to go down. You have to think creatively every time because there's always a new problem to solve. We can dig into that a little bit further.
Nice, I like the teaser. So if you 3 are ready, we're going to go ahead and launch into some of the questions that I have prepared for you all. But I do want to encourage the students who are here listening to type in any questions that cross your mind as we all chat. We are really here for these folks to answer your questions, so don't hold back. All righty, so I'm going to pose the first question actually to all 3 of you. And my first question is, what does being somebody with a solution mindset mean to you, and specifically mean to you in the professional role that you're in? And we can popcorn, so whoever's ready.
I can go. This is Bev. Yes, I think a solution mindset is really important in our sort of industry and in our nonprofit world. Particularly in with the organization that we're with, we work with almost 24,000 parents a year. We have 1,200 volunteer coaches. We have a staff of 14, and so our major job is to create a early positive youth sports experience that will really enhance kids' enjoyment of activity. And so that's a big task when you're working with some volunteer coaches and then with parents who have different expectations. And so what we need in our organization as a solution mindset is that we have to be really, really good listeners. We have to really understand what our parents are facing, what our clients are facing, what are the issues and the challenges of our volunteer coaches, how can we be user-friendly. We certainly have parameters in our organization that we stand very strictly by in terms of how our parents register that kids must play in their neighborhood schools. We want to create community through that. But there's different ways of looking at that, and different ways certainly now through the COVID situation, that we're trying to be very flexible. And so we really need to keep in mind that, number one, our major goal is to keep kids safe and keep them having fun and developing and playing in a way that is constructive for them and that helps our coaches and helps our parents. But we also have to be very open-minded to listen and really listen. And I think listening, to me, is a big part of a solution mindset, because you want to hear what the problem is before you can address the solution. And so we really work hard to ask questions and to really dig deep into specifics of those challenges. And many times when you ask a parent or a coach, the solution arises out of the questions that they're asking. So that's really what I feel a solution mindset person is all about in our organization.
I go next. As I said, I do educational research. And so what that means for us is working in really multidisciplinary teams. As we moved in technology, we're really working with software companies and designers and developers and assessment makers and all sorts of things. And really the whole goal is to help kids learn better. We do a lot of math and reading, and again, working in computer science a little bit more. And we need to make sure that as we're doing that, we're making solutions for problems that really do exist. So sometimes the ivory tower of academics is criticized for just coming down with ideas that they have and putting them into effect. And teachers and students don't really need that. They need help doing and solving the problems they have. And so as we're thinking about how to design a better reading intervention or a math curriculum or a cool app to teach math, we need to really understand what the real problems are, again, from both the societal point of view, but also individual students and teachers' points of view. We need to make sure that we're making products that really help real kids and real teachers learn, not imaginary ones in our head that do everything perfectly all the time. And then it needs to work in real classrooms. And that's where, especially educational technology, has often fallen down in the fairly recent past, is it works under ideal situations, maybe in a university setting with an older person using it, but you put it in the hands of a kindergartner in a classroom with 30 people in between recess and dirty fingers and and all of a sudden it falls apart. And so we have to be thinking of all those different things and really making a concerted effort to design quality products that really do keep the emphasis on learning, make it fun, make it engaging, but help kids really learn, and that work. And so we have to work with lots of different people, listen to lots of different perspectives, and really balance a lot of different things in order to make that happen.
Very true. I'm hearing the listening component come in. I see a theme here. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm going to start focus just on what architects do, and then I'll go a little broad. So architects, in their most essential mode, listen and serve. So we're going to triple down on listening. And it's not just so much listening as it is hearing and then proactively discovering solutions that solve the real problems and speak to the values of the folks that you're listening to. Right. So you can listen and you can internally bring forth something that makes sense to you. But if you didn't really hear and evaluate what you were hearing as you're hearing it and coming back and saying, okay, here's what I might do, but what would this organization do? What matters to them? What's going to move them forward? And so broader now, we have seen, so architects are kind of the generalists of the design world. We have many, many people that work for us. And I can tell you that just about everywhere in the construction, fabrication, all aspects of the built environment, everyone now is required to be much more creative and responsive. It used to be like, here's my thing, I make it, buy it, don't buy it, I don't care. Those days are gone. Right now, the expectation is that you're going to listen and you're going to create a custom solution with whatever it is you do that fits the needs and values of your customer. And the technology is to the point where that is possible. So all these things that are here on the analysis solution mindset problem solver page are real things that almost everybody who works are going to have to use in their life now. You can't just say, well, I'm going to get a job where I make a gadget in a factory. Even a worker in a factory has to be flexible and to think, okay, how can I do this better? How am I going to respond? How am I going to be a part of the team that's valuable? So I can't emphasize enough how listening, critical thinking, and empathy are going to be key to your success. No matter what you do, if you are masters of those things, you're going to be better at what you do.
And so by empathy, you mean putting yourself in your client's shoes to understand how to solve their problem, you know, in their situation?
Exactly. Yes. You have to get outside yourself and think about how am I making a solution for the person who needs it?
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. So would all three of you say that you have always been solution finders? Or is that something is that a skill that you grew into or that you consciously developed?
Go ahead, Mary.
That's all right. I think for me, if I think about it in terms of problem solving and wanting to just fix things rather than whine about them, complain about them, or go have somebody else do it for me, yes, I have always been that person. I also have always been a mediator. So in my family, I often played a mediator role and tried to find common solutions and things like that. In my work, I draw on those skills a lot. I pretty much always feel there's a middle ground between maybe two solutions you have in mind or two people with opposing views. And it might not be right in the middle. You might not just both give 50-50 and that's where the solution is. It might be really far towards one end or the other. But I think that thinking of how to find the common ground, looking for new solutions people haven't thought of, really getting people talking about you know, what are the real problems we're trying to solve? What can I bring to the table? Has always been kind of in the back of my mind. And in my work now, I also put it to use a lot for like making things more efficient. So if I see a system in the university bureaucracy or something that just drives me crazy and there's not a logical reason I can see for it, first I ask for the logical reason. And if there's one, maybe I'll buy it. But I also kind of push back and look for ways to make that system more efficient because I figure if I'm having the issue, other people are too. So I look for those solutions.
Nice. A little bit of go-getter in you too, just a little bit. John, what were you going to say?
Pushing the wrong button. So I would say everyone that I've never met anyone who didn't have the intrinsic ability to learn these skills. But that they are learned, and I'm better at them than I used to be because I keep actively these competencies are never going to go away. I'm still working on them today, 50 years into this career or whatever it is. And so you can do it. Anyone can do it. You have to work on it, but it's a little bit of all three, I think, and diligence and grit and sticking to learning this and being open.
Great. Bev, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with both Mari and John. And I think, I think the biggest thing to be solution oriented is you can certainly learn these skills, but it does take time and it does take study. And it does take self-awareness to realize that sometimes, as John pointed out, I haven't always been aware of some things that I just have maybe assumed or felt that I had the knowledge that was the end of it. And I've learned to really, really, again, as I talked about in the beginning, listen. I think I've always been on a team. And so team sports, whether I started, we were a family of 6, so that was a big team. I learned a lot of lessons from sharing and caring and finding out the consequences of not doing that when you have 2 brothers and a sister. And so we were pretty solution oriented ourselves. We got, sort of booted out of the house on Saturday mornings and we're told to come back at lunch and then at dinner. So fortunately we stayed on the right sort of side of the law, I guess, and really just organized, sports among our friends in the neighborhood. And so we learned a lot on the playground about how to, find solutions. If there was three of us, we played 2-on-1. If there was 5 of us, we played 3-on-2. And we didn't let the lopsidedness take away. So we always found solutions. And I think as I sort of advanced in my professional basketball playing career, you come to learn that there's so much more to learn each and every time that you put yourself out there for a game or a competition. And, the solutions are always found a lot more when you've had sort of adversity, and losses allow you to really take a look at that, and your curiosity, if you're really driven to find out more, will lead you to do it in a different way, do it in a better way, change your position, change and adapt what you're looking to accomplish, with the result always leading you and driving you where you want to go. So that's important. So I do believe that it is both learned and inherent in some of us. And certainly your upbringing, I think, plays an important part of that as well.
Yeah,
I
Mari.
think one note, Bev noticed that, she was on team sports a lot growing up and things like that. And I didn't have that. I was always on individual sports and kind of part of larger teams. I was also the oldest child. And so one thing that's been really neat for me to see over my lifetime is that I've really come to value larger teams much more than I did when I was a kid. And especially in my work now, I run really inclusive projects in terms of taking in everybody's solution ideas and probably not all the time, but trying to take in everybody's ideas, even if they don't have the PhD, which is maybe what a professor would have, even if they don't have training in a particular area. Because those viewpoints are what really make things stronger and which really allow you to come up with the creative solution. Sometimes it has to be someone who's not steeped in something that comes up with the groundbreaking idea of how to do things differently. And I've really come to appreciate that as the years have gone on. So even though I kind of had some natural tendencies, it's been neat to see those used differently as I've gotten older.
I like that. So we actually have a question here from a student named Maya. Maya wants to know, and I feel like we'll open this up to all 3 of you in case anybody has any burning responses. What are some good practices or questions to ask yourself in order to build self-awareness to develop this kind of solution mindset? It's an awesome question. So good practices, good questions to pose to yourself for introspection to build self-awareness.
So I can start. I'll give our perspective so that everybody can get a different piece. So in creative work, which, as I mentioned before, is increasingly all work, we have a thing we call design thinking. So design thinking is a process. Google it. There's usually about 5 or 6 steps, and so that's a concrete way you can look at: have I gone through these steps? Right? Have I thought about what the problem is? Have I analyzed possible solutions? Have I built a team? Have I proposed a solution? Have I told my story? There's some concrete mental steps you can go through when you're facing a rather larger problem, right? This isn't, well, what am I having for breakfast? This is more like, all right, I'm going to do a big project in school. And I have some autonomy around that project. I'm going to be able to decide for myself what it is and what it looks like. start working in a little bit more of a frame. It's really hard to just go from white space and somebody says, hey, think analysis solution mindset. Like, what does that mean? Pick a set of criteria that will narrow and bracket what you're going to do, because constraining yourself at the beginning is crucial. And then use those steps. There are lots of great ones out there, and I'll work, Lizzie, I'll get you some resources that you can share with the students. Work in that frame. And then suddenly you find yourself just naturally doing it out of repetition, that I've gone through these steps, and within them is that, key listening component in the iterative. And in other words, you heard, you listened, you synthesized, and then you reintroduced an adjusted idea. And that's part of that design thinking process. And I would also encourage you to go out and look at other processes, but pick something, experiment with it, and then try another thing. And because I can tell you that mental discipline is so crucial to being effective at this. You have to be able to put your thoughts into a mode and stay focused, or you will wander around and drive all your teammates crazy. So it's really, really important. Plus, I'll say one more thing and I'll stop. Developing a common language is critical. So when you're working with your team, the first thing is, okay, how are we talking about this? And you could be like, hey, here's my problem. That's the design thinking process. I have it on my poster board. This is what we're going to do. Everybody looks at that and goes, okay, here's how we're going to talk about it. So much communication gets collapsed and made better when you do that. And if you're really conversant in the process you're going to propose, in other words, you've used it and you've thought it through, your mind will travel down that path and everyone will get on board more quickly. So I would say find something like that and start practicing it.
That's awesome. And that actually leads really nicely into our next question that I think will hold space for Mari and Bev to answer, since John, you got that one. But Mari and Bev, do you use a trial and error method when confronted with a big problem to solve? And I have a follow-up to that. And when you do fail, how do you pick yourself up and keep trying?
Oh, she's pointing at me. Uh-oh. I have gotten much better at doing trial and error as I've gotten older. When I was a kid, I did not want to make mistakes at all. And that lasted probably longer than it should have into adulthood. But I'm finally in my old age figuring out that mistakes are okay. You can learn from them. People aren't judging you because of them. They are really the way to get things done a lot of the time and to move things forward. So yeah, people say make mistakes and they're okay, and people nod and go, whatever, but it's true. So believe it. And then the other piece of that is that you can think about trial and error in a lot of different ways. So you can do informed trial and error, not just blindly doing things. Like, have some reason you're going to try something. I think that's a good way to start. Having it guided by your really critical problem that you're trying to solve, or your really guiding questions. So that you're not just doing shots in the dark. You're actually probably moving in somewhat the right direction, and then you can course correct a little bit. And then that sometimes trial and error means finding the right person to help you. So my trial and error might be reaching out to somebody and they tell me, no, I don't have time to help you, or I don't have the answer, but here, go talk to somebody else. I try them and they can help me. So especially in educational technology, we do a lot of just getting things out there when they're a pretty good idea and good enough, and we kind of test them and quality assurance them, test them to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. Then we put a lot of resources behind it. If you never take that first step, you've got nothing tangible to talk about, you've not got anything tangible to show teachers and students, and you kind of just flounder. So especially in my work now, I'm doing a lot more of that, even though it is guided by the research literature and by our experiences with teachers and by our priorities.
I've never thought about it that way, and I think that's brilliant. I think when I picture trial and error, I picture just like launching into something and failing, but I loved the informed failing or informed error. What about you, Bev?
Yeah, a lot along the same lines as Mari. You know, we do in my life and in our organization, we do a lot of trial and error, but it is informed. It's not reckless. It's just not, hey, let's experiment with this program to see if it works with kids. Maybe not. Really important to make sure that everything is by the book and safe with them. And really, trial and error is, I really think a lot about preparation. Preparing in the best way you possibly can to give this trial its best shot. And regardless of whether it's successful or not, you're going to learn from it. You know, there's always little errors that you can pick up along the way that you can do better. And so, you know, an example of that we just went through is when we moved into our building, we were not, you know, able to deliver any team sports, which is our bread and butter. It's really our wheelhouse. And we had to pivot really sharply and deliver summer camp programs for 8 consecutive weeks in COVID. And so it was really a trial and error. Can we do this? I think we really informed ourselves as to what it would take in the COVID sort of scenario, how we could deliver a safe camp for kids to come in and play and develop and just get some social, emotional. And we really felt like, gosh, you know, this is probably for the schools, but I have a great team that went to work, that studied everything. We put it on the whiteboard. We had incredibly long conversations, and we really applied ourselves. As John mentioned, you have to have a certain level of concentration when you're preparing for something like this. And we then just decided, hey, we've done the best that we can to prepare and keep these kids safe and having fun. We took a big, deep breath, and we just did it. And we tried to do every hour. We just went hour by hour. Let's make this next hour the best, most safe, fun hour these kids can have. And we were able to do that through the 8 weeks. Learned some things as we went through it and got better at it. And the kids, as a result, I think really enjoyed the experience. But if you prepare and you plan and you really do your research, I think if you're prepared, you'll always, even if you fail, you're going to learn something that will help you next time around.
Absolutely. Wise words. Question for all three of you. How have you benefited from having a solution mindset as a professional? Maybe like top 2 ways you've benefited. Should I call on somebody?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
So everywhere in every aspect of our work, there is probably no portion of anything serious aside from what type of soda do I want to drink. I actually don't drink soda, but you know what I mean. Everything that we take seriously, everything that our clients and customers take seriously benefits from this. So I can't emphasize it enough. Really, it is a fundamental.
In my world, I would say that when we first started doing the educational technology things, I said, I'm going to make this instructional math app that's going to offer individualized instruction to small kids, and it's going to work like this. And nobody at my organization had ever done something like that before. We had no in-house expertise to that. So I was partnering with software companies. There are all sorts of intellectual property right issues you have to deal with in contracts and learning design processes and all sorts of things that didn't ever get encountered by my colleagues before this project came along. And so every time I turned around, I had to learn or do something new. And I had to, because I said I would. I had a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money to do it. This was not, an unlimited thing. This is my job. And so I found ways to make those things happen. And I brought in teammates who could get in the right mindset with me and make these things happen. And so even today, I'm 10 years into one of these projects, and I'm still being confronted with new challenges that people at the university or in our team haven't had to do before. So being willing to say, okay, this is new. There is no exact right answer yet. We're going to find the best one we can, and we're going to move on and tackle the next problem has been exciting and really important. The other thing about how it's benefited me, I think having that attitude and being positive about it rather than like, oh, now we have another problem to solve, has helped me get people around me that like that and want to be part of that. And so they want to help find those solutions, and they don't want to be the one blocking you. They want to be the one helping you along. And so that's really nice.
I like it. Bev, what about you?
Yes, I think I have. I mean, it has really helped in my career. For a long time, I was involved in team sports as both as an athlete and then as a coach. And so now leaving sort of that team environment of just, you had pretty straight, goals that you needed to accomplish. You wanted to win as many games as you could, to coming to a nonprofit and learning a whole new business. I did have to have a little bit of a solution mindset as a professional. And I think what I learned through just, my team experience in that really helped me. It didn't really relate to the things that I had to study, which were finances and balance sheets and all kinds of HR obstacles that I really didn't have any education in. But I think having a solution-oriented mindset helped me, because I knew that I had some strengths that would really help the organization and add value, but there were other areas that I needed to surround myself with people that had even greater strengths in those areas. And as a result, I was fortunate because I landed at the organization when we had a very strong operations manager. He was sort of chain of command kind of guy, a former military service person that really had a set procedure. And to this day, there's 3 or 4 principles that I still hang my hat on every day that speak to being prepared for the solutions that you might not even think are coming your way. And so it is something that has helped me, but it's also something that I've continually had to improve upon. And there was a question about self-awareness, I think if you have a good team around you that you can trust, that's the most important thing. And then I always seek their feedback on everything, even from, how did I present that? Was that a good way? Did I come across as, a coach or a dictator, or did it feel like I, am trying to be solution oriented, and that everybody is free and welcome to bring their idea to the table? If you can have 1 or 2 people in your organization that you can say, look at, I don't know how that came across, this is how I felt. Because I think we all sort of self-doubt ourselves. And when someone looks at you the wrong way, you're like, oh my God, I did something wrong. And they could just be, having indigestion that day because they had cabbage for lunch or something. But, I think that those things are really important, to find someone, even if it's a family member, that you can rely on to give you, the truth. I think that's really important in the awareness, and then bringing that solution mindset to whatever you do.
Yeah, and when you do bring stuff to them and ask for the truth, I feel like you have to be ready to hear the truth just in case. So we actually have a couple questions here from students. Ashton would like to know, what are some of the challenges that make it difficult to keep a solution mindset? So what are some of the hurdles that you all have come across?
I can speak a little bit to that. I think the hurdles are always just the pushback you get from your clients, whatever they may be, or they might not be completely satisfied with what you're doing. And in our sort of business, there's only so many things that we can really change to help our families. And for example, we require that, our teams form in neighborhood schools, and that's just the way the organization has based itself, that all kids play, and that we form in neighborhood elementary schools and then middle schools. And there's a lot of deep layers within that, but we get pushback that that's not in the best interest of my child, because my child is trying to make the high school team and then trying to make the collegiate team, and therefore you should just let us form teams how we want, so that we can have that coach, and then that coach can take us down the yellow brick road to, high school and college, which there's nothing wrong with that. And so, we have to understand, what are our organizational standards, and how do we stay true to those organizational standards without warping them just to deal with a certain aspect. And you might want that person in your organization because, they've got really good tools, but they want to warp, the rules for their one general purpose. And so we have to go back to what are our organizational standards. And then it's just, hey, this is just not going to work here. It's just not a good fit. There's another organization out there that can really help you with what you want to do. And we understand that, no hard feelings, we just have to move on. And so you have to come to a certain point where it's just not a fit. And they have to find a solution perhaps in another organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mari or John?
I'll go. A couple of things came to mind. One challenge is that depending on how many things you're trying to do at once, how many problems you're trying to solve, and how many people are involved, it can get kind of tiring. Sometimes you just want to be told what to do or just pick the easiest solution or whatever. So it's exhilarating and fun and productive, but it's also, like a lot of things in life, tiring. Kind of piggybacking on Bev's idea, when you are kind of forced to work in situations or with people who don't have the solution mindset and they're just like, the answer is no, we can't do it. And you're like, but there's got to be a way to do it. And like, no, and you're like, okay. So then you just kind of have to wear them down or come at them from different ways, and eventually they come around. And then the other part is making sure you're focused on finding the solution to the problem you started with and not kind of veering off into other things, or it's called scope creep a lot in educational technology development, where, oh, but then we could do this and this and this, and what's the solution to all these problems? And you're like, but wait, our actual problem we're trying to solve is over here. So just making sure that you're kind of coming back to those priorities and the real problems you're trying to solve.
That sounds a lot like what you said at the beginning of like narrowing your scope to just get started and finding a solution. Sorry, say that one more time. I missed you.
Amari totally nailed it. I have nothing further to add.
Awesome. Cool. Well, the next question comes from Olivia. Olivia wants to know I love this question. How do you know when to try to find a solution on your own versus asking for help? I've heard a lot of team talk, so I'm sure that will come into your responses, but John?
I could take a quick stab at that. So I'll just give you a little bit of career advice that was hard won for me. Don't make more work for other people. Very simple, especially your boss. You want to make less work for your boss because you have a boss probably. And if you're an entrepreneur, the world is your boss. And so yeah, you want to try to figure things out, but you don't want to spin unnecessarily. Try to figure out on your own what is an appropriate amount of effort for this. So let's say somebody said, hey, let's decide what snacks should go in the break room. That's a 15-minute decision. You don't need to spend 3 days going through the pros and cons of snacks. Although honestly, we have a health and wellness group here at our office that did spend 3 days talking about snacks. They took all the snacks away. But the point is, figure out what's the amount of time you should be working on this. And if you're not sure about that, that's the question to ask. Don't go to your boss or your coworker and say, hey, tell me how to solve this problem I've been tasked with solving. You say, how much time and effort should I put into this? So that expectations are clear. And then you figure stuff out on your own the best you can and ask your peers if you can get a little help from them. Kind of like what both Mari and Bev were talking about. If I'm not quite sure, I'll ask somebody and I'll ask another person, but informally. And then so try hard on your own to figure it out. And if you're just like, I'm stuck, or I feel like I'm in an echo chamber, the more you do this, the easier it'll get. Then you say, okay, here's the solutions I've come up with so far. Am I on the right track? Not, okay, person, help me solve the problem. Is this the right direction? And if I wanted resources, where should I go? So each time you're not asking for someone to do your work, you're asking someone to help enable and empower you to do your work better. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, that made sense to me. That's a great answer. Unless Mari or Bev have something you'd like to add, I might move on to the next question just because they're coming in. I love it.
I think that was really good. I think the one thing I would add to that is that I often tell my staff, like, if you find you're spending more than this amount of time on it, come talk to me because you're probably off in the weeds. And then also, if you're spending a lot of time trying to solve a problem you think there should be an answer for, go ask somebody, because there probably is, especially at the university. Like somebody has found this supply chain or whatever before you. So the answer is out there most of the time.
Great. Thanks, Mari. So we have a question that's a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking about today, but I thought I'd throw it out there just in case anybody has any advice. But Alejandra would like to know, do any of you have advice for an entrepreneur that is struggling to get started?
University of Oregon has a program. It's called a Regional Accelerator. I would recommend go down there. It's on Olive, I think. You just type in RAIN, Regional Accelerator. They have a literal crap ton of resources for somebody who's thinking of doing a startup. And you could just go saturate yourself with all of that stuff.
Perfect. That's awesome, John. I was thinking the same thing. So we have a question here from another one from Maya. Have any of you ever felt like there was a time when you weren't very self-disciplined? And if so, how did you get to the point where you felt like you were self-disciplined enough?
Often. And it doesn't go away. It just kind of ebbs and flows. It's often tied to how well I'm doing self-care, and, you know, am I prioritizing the things in my life I need to be prioritizing? If I am, then I will find that I can be more self-disciplined and keep myself on track in all areas. So if I'm exercising and spending time with my family and sleeping enough, then when I actually sit down to work, I can think, and the blood is flowing, and I have set aside the time, and so I'm going to accomplish something with that time. When I tend to get really stressed out and not taking care of myself, often this happens around grant proposal deadlines where I'm trying to get enough money to pay for my salary. I start going down this hole and everything kind of falls apart in all areas, and that self-discipline goes out the window. And I think I'm working, and I think I'm working smart, but then if I sit at the end of the day and go, oh, I didn't actually accomplish the main things I needed to do, the main problems I was trying to solve, I didn't solve. Or, you know, I got distracted and worried about all these other things. So that would be one tip. I think there are a lot of different ones if I thought more.
Thanks, Mari. Bev, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with Mari. It wanes and waxes, and I think it really does wane and wax depending on your energy and just where you are in the process of a solution. I think a couple of things is a lot of people look to be motivated, and I think motivation really happens after you're disciplined. I think you just, you know, there's that old saying, you just got to go out and do it sometimes. You've got to make time for yourself to go for a walk or go for a run or get away from being bogged down, because I think it can really help clear all that you're doing when you do, in fact, take some time away and take some self-care, which is discipline in itself. That's something that you can really build on. And I think it adds value to yourself, and you can feel good about that when you get out for a walk or a run in the morning. I think you have a more productive day, even though when you are lying in bed, it just doesn't feel that's going to be what's going to happen to you. So I think that's important, and that's going to wax and wane. I think the other thing is always remember your strengths, and to feel good about yourself and get that discipline back. Go back to do something that you can control in the moment and feel good about. And sometimes for me, it's just washing and putting away the dishes or vacuuming and getting something accomplished that I can control, that then sets me up for, you know, taking that into my work. I think that provides a lot of you've got some self-discipline there, and that can go a long way in leading into your workday.
I completely agree. Often when I'm overwhelmed and feeling like I'm procrastinating a little bit, I'll make a list and I'll just check off the easiest things just to get the ball rolling. And it makes it seem just a little bit easier. We have another question from Ashton, and I like this question a lot too. How would you go about compromising with someone who is closed-minded or isn't solution-oriented?
Take a quick stab. someone will always be standing in your way. If you're attempting to do anything meaningful, then there are going to be other perspectives about even so much the fundamentals, like how we're going about potentially looking at something. And the only thing I can tell you is, without going into a bunch of detail around training for this, this is also something you can learn. We could tackle that in another session perhaps, but just like these problem solving pieces, understanding the human interaction component is a learned skill. Don't just think, well, either I'm charismatic and talented at this or I can't do it. You can do it. You can train yourself to do it, and you can help other people come to a place where they're able to move forward with you. It just takes work and discipline and thought and sticking to it. It happens all the time though. So it's a good skill to build as you're going forward, and relish that. Actually, I have to say that I've done some of my best work when somebody was calling me out on my BS, right? And it was out of the echo chamber. Like, I don't think that's what you say it is. And then I asked myself, well, am I really BSing? Actually, I kind of am. Okay. Slap to the face. We're going to start again and better the next time. So you don't have to fear it, embrace it. And a little bit of conflict can actually really lead to some great solutions.
I like that. John, actually, I have a quick follow-up question. What if that person is a client? How do you navigate that?
You have to respect others in their decision-making space, right? That's very, very important, especially as a young person. You're going to have a ton of ideas. I remember when I was 19, I was like, the world needs to just listen to me, and I would solve all these problems. And then I realized as I got further along, everybody has a valuable perspective. And at some point, you've just signed decision-making to a space. Respect it. You give your input. You say, this is the direction that the information, the data is leading us. You are the decision maker, and we'll stand by your decision unless it's unethical or dangerous or something like that. And you move forward with that, because leading is almost always about really following well, I have found. Right? Somebody does something that somebody's already done. So as Mari pointed out, somebody's already done it. In the universe of human endeavor, everything has been tried. Find something that works and move. And if I'm working with somebody where I'm not in the decision space, I will offer them the solution. They'll make the decision, and I'll respect it, and we'll move forward.
Great. Okay, so I just want to throw out there that we have been on for about 45 to 50 minutes. So this is going to be my last call to students. Feel free to throw any last questions that you have for our panelists into the chat feature. I will kick us off with one more question, and then hopefully we can address any that the students still have for you. We'll end on a positive note. Can you tell us about a problem-solving moment that you are the most proud of? And this can be professional, this can be personal, whatever you'd like to share with the group.
I'll go first, just because it kind of ties into what was just being said, actually, or the question that was asked. So again, I'm focusing a lot at tech. That's where my head is right now. But we were working with an outside company. We had to work with them for my project to be moving forward. And we were stuck at a contracting impasse between the university and them. And I was in the middle going, I need you to be talking to each other and signing agreements so that I can do my work. And it wasn't happening. And we just were going round and round in circles. And finally I said, okay, we just need to all be on the same phone call together. If you actually talk things out at the same time rather than an email, all that, it's going to go better. So I got us all on a phone call. And during that phone call, we really honed in on what each party needed. So not how they got it, how they wanted to get it, but like, what do you need from the situation? And once we got that on the table, then we were able to find a new option that met everybody's requirements and had never been tried before at the university. And it was like, oh, okay, this is now an option. And everybody was okay with it. We had the contract signed the next day. And then it became a practice that all sorts of other projects on campus were able to use. And it took somebody who wasn't in contracting and who wasn't in ed tech, and all of us working together to bring in that new perspective of, well, it doesn't have to go A or B, it can go C. And that was just super inspiring because little old me made it happen. And it had a trickle down effect that other people were able to benefit from. So I was like, I worked the system and I changed the system.
I love it. I love it. I can feel your energy through the computer. It's the best. What about John or Bev?
Well, I think I would just refer back to, I think one of the things that we did really well this summer was just, like so many organizations, their need to really switch up and adapt to what the climate was allowing to happen in the community, in the area of physical activity and just camps and clinics. You know, I really take my hat off to our team. We came together. The staff that we have here is very committed to kids and to having physical activity and sports be a co-curricular part of their education, not just an extracurricular. And so, again, I can't sort of reiterate how important it was for us to just really get as prepared as possible. We really probably overstaffed on the first 2 or 3 weeks because we just wanted to make, you know, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. And so we really wanted that first impression to speak and actually act like kids were the most important thing, and they were. And we were able to do that. And that impression then has a lasting effect for how we do everything in this building. I mean, we had to move over here. We had to figure out a building. We had to figure out entrances and exits and temperature checking and how do you get kids in bathrooms over here and not over there. And kids don't necessarily know that they have to exit one way and not wear a mask this day. And so it was really, to me, we took a deep breath. We were prepared, and it takes a little bit of courage sometimes just to step out there, because in these conditions, it was very tenuous. And we were fortunate to have great cooperation with our staff, but mostly our parents and the kids that were in the building. So it can be done for sure.
So really quickly, I'll say, kind of doubling down on what Mari was saying, where I was able to work as a bridge to a community solution, right? And this is important for our conversation today because many of the skills that you need to act in that role are right here on our little grid of the analysis solution mindset, to be able to listen, to recognize needs and address them. And there, you know, the better I've gotten at it, the more often it happens, and the happier I am in my daily life. I get up in the morning, I'm like, I can't wait to start working on my projects. And I would wish that to anyone in their work life. And no one's going to give it to you. That you have to earn it yourself and make space for yourself in that. And so I would say making that space and being in the place where I feel happy and satisfied is my personal best achievement in my career.
That's awesome. I'm happy that we ended on a positive note, and it looks like we have answered all of the questions that students have for us. So I'm just going to wrap us up. Please join us next week for our webinar on collaboration, which is I just see a thank you. Okay, I thought it was going to be a question, but Maya says thank you to you all. I will echo Maya. Thank you to all three of you so much for being here and for the wisdom you've imparted on us and the time spent. So thank you all. Okay, bye everyone. We'll see you next week, students. Bye.